Now, if I said, I want to see Kissy Lips and Stank-Face, and I mean now, you'd be forgiven for thinking I'm talking about a comedy duo, or crime-fighting drag queens, or maybe I'm just being sassy, but no. This is something I actually say to singers when I want to elicit more intensity and expression from the voice. And if you're thinking, well, Kissy Lips and Stank-Face sounds kind of stupid, you'd be right, but they work. And that's today's quick tip. Hi, I'm Scott. You're watching Inside Musicals, the channel for all things musical theatre. Now, if you haven't seen any of my quick tips before, each one is a simple idea that unlocks big potential in the voice or performance. It's not the only way to do things, but it's one way to get to the result. I talk a lot about keeping the jaw in motion when we sing to release tension, improve diction. But if you really want to take the voice to the next level, the jaw alone won't do it if we forget about the muscularity of the lips. And that's why I find most singers tend to respond well to Kissy Lips. And no, it's not just me being inappropriate, unless you ask nicely. All we're doing is keeping the lips in motion, but in a very specific way. We want to engage the outer ring of the mouth, but keep the tip of the lips soft and pouty as much as possible. Kissy Lips. It'll make more sense as we go along. So let's listen to the difference that it makes, and then I'll give you some tips about how to put it into action. So let's start with no jaw movement, no lips, and notice how it sounds kind of contained and how that tension limits the expression of the voice.
When you're a jet all the way from your first cigarette to your last dying day.
Now let's add some jaw movement, but no lips.
When you're a jet all the way from your first cigarette to your last dying day.
And so much more responsive and energized. But we can take it even further with Kissy Lips.
When you're a jet all the way from your first cigarette to your last dying day.
And it's even more dynamic. And even though there's a lot going on, it feels and looks more relaxed because it's flexible. And in my voice, at least, it helps me access a wider range of tone colour. And for a baritone, that's a plus. And for most singers, vibrancy and character are an important part of expression. Used properly, Kissy Lips gives us a certain amount of sass, or as we used to call it at drum school, lip-smacking relish. Because that's exactly what it is. And the best way to kind of integrate Kissy Lips is to enjoy the ride. And we'll come back to that. And the thing I find interesting is that by simply activating the lips, we energise the whole mechanism. So now we've looked at why, let's look at how, because I know some people struggle with isolating these two muscle groups. So stand in front of a mirror, bring the lips forward in an ooh sound, then clench, relax, stretch, relax, clench, relax, stretch, relax. And now you'll notice how the tip of the lips move independently from the band around them. Now, I don't have the fullest, luscious lips or the biggest mouth, but the point of this technique is not about trying to look pretty. It's about precision and movement. What's that phrase? It's not the size that matters, it's what you do with it that counts. I think that's where that phrase comes from. And the reason why we want to keep the lips soft is it reminds us to stay flexible, to release tension. Because when we clench the lips...
When you're a jet all the way from your first cigarette to your last dying day.
We're not as responsive. It sounds laboured and looks a little bit angry. So when you think lips, think Kissy Lips, trademarked, patent pending. Now, I spoke earlier about lip-smacking relish. And this is where Stank-Face comes in, because now we enliven the rest of the face. So think Billy Idol, Chaka Khan, Patti LuPone, whoever comes to mind, and practice activating the snarl muscles. That's the technical term. Flaring the nostrils, squinting, lifting the brow, furrowing the brow. And as with many of these tips, don't be afraid of being a little bit over the top at first.
When you're a jet all the way from your first cigarette to your last dying day.
As long as we make sense of the material, we're not just randomly screwing up the face, the audience won't question it. As far as they're concerned, as long as we look expressive, we are expressive. But the real crux of this technique is translating the physicality into a colourful sound. Because if you've ever listened back to your voice in a recording, you'll know it's not as simple as you might think. So take inspiration from those wonderful Disney princesses, Belle, Ariel, Mulan, and listen for the physicality in the voice, even though we don't see their real faces. But if you ever find yourself singing with a blank face, now you know what to say. Kiss your lips on Stank-Face, blank face to Stank-Face. You heard it here first. Thank you so much for watching. I do love you. If you have any questions or thoughts, leave them in the comments. But for now, get out there and be brilliant.